Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Building It Online podcast, a podcast all about the successes, failures, and learnings from growing businesses online. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Bryce, and I'm here with Sophia Bera of Gen Y Planning. And me and Sophia met back in Austin at an entrepreneur's brunch way back while. And Sophia is an incredible entrepreneur and one of the most avid travelers that I know. And so we're here to talk about Sophia's journey, getting started, and what she's doing now running Gen Y Planning. So, hey, Sophia, thanks for coming on to the podcast today.
Hey, Bryce. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, do you want to kind of tell everyone a little bit about what is Gen Y Planning and kind of how you got started into the financial planning world?
Absolutely. So I launched Gen Y Planning about 6.5 years ago so that I could help millennials with their money. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of people that were helping young clients. So one of the things that I do is help people use their money to match their values to live great lives. I worked in traditional financial planning for 5 years. Then I worked for a fintech startup for a year. And I really, at that startup, realized I loved working virtually. I loved working with clients across the country. I loved that it didn't matter where I was or where my client was, that I could meet with them. And so that really sparked some ideas about helping people in their 20s and 30s with their money. Now my client base has grown. I would say the majority of my clients are mid 20s to mid 40s. And, they're starting to ask these bigger questions like, how do I merge my finances with a partner? I'm getting married this year, now what? Now, like, how do we plan for bigger goals like retirement, buying a home, having a family? And so I really help people navigate through those big life changes and figure out how to save them money on taxes, how to reach their goals even faster, how to optimize their current situation. So it's really fun. I charge an upfront planning fee followed by a monthly retainer, which is really different than how a lot of financial planners work. And the big thing for me was that I was really into listening to podcasts and learning about this online entrepreneur world, and also was watching what some financial bloggers were doing. And so I really wanted to take some of this online world of people who were running these remote companies and the financial planning world of being able to help a younger demographic with their finances. And I didn't know if I could combine those things at the time when I first started kind of tossing around these ideas, but I have. And now 6.5 years later, I work with about 100 clients across the country. I spent 4 months abroad this year, and I have a small virtual team, and now I'm back in Austin for a little bit, which is really fun.
That's so awesome. Because when we've had a lot of conversations, and you really kind of changed the way that a lot of people do financial planning, because it's very uncommon for someone to have a virtual financial planning company, more or less one that doesn't run on more of a commission-based structure and that goes after younger, like kind of the millennial professionals. So when you were getting started and all that, like, how did you go about coming out of this more traditional brokerage and say, like, I'm going to start a virtual financial planning company? That's awesome. So how did you go from working at like a traditional brokerage to launching a remote virtual financial planning company?
Yeah, I ended up basically burning out at the startup job that I was working at. I was this young, naive girl from Minnesota who had no idea what she was getting into when it came to working at a New York-based fintech startup, which meant working a lot. And I was in front of my computer all the time. I was exhausted. It started affecting my health and I would just really realize that I couldn't sustain that pace anymore. And I had done it for about a year. And so I started interviewing for jobs in traditional financial planning. I was living in Minnesota at the time. And I just wasn't excited about them, because after I had worked with people virtually and after I could work from anywhere, I really wanted to do my own thing. Because I just wanted to work with young clients, but I didn't want to do it in the way that the startup was doing it. And so I actually went out to dinner with my mentor. And it was the day before my 29th birthday. And we go out to dinner. His name's Scott. He has been one of my mentors for a long time. He's a Gen Xer. He's 12 years older than me. And he and I had worked together at one of the firms that I was at previously. And I started telling him about, making this career transition and what I was going to do next. And I wasn't really sure. And I had a second or third interview at this traditional financial planning firm, but I really didn't want to get up every day and commute 45 minutes and put on a suit and heels and work with clients that had $2 million plus. And it just wasn't exciting to me. And so he said, well, what else are you thinking? And I just started to word vomit the business plan that was in my head, which I didn't even know was a business plan. But basically what I told him was, I really want to help young clients with their money, and I want to do it on a monthly retainer, and I want to charge an upfront planning fee. And I think that millennials will want to do things that way because we pay for our lives monthly. Why wouldn't we want to pay for our financial planner monthly? And he just looked at me and said, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I was like, oh, that I'll fail, that I won't make any money, that no one will want to work with me, that I'm too young, that I don't have a graduate degree. I had like every reason why I thought that this would not be successful. And he just looked at me and said, no, Sophia, the worst thing that can happen is you'll have to get a job in financial planning, which is exactly what you're thinking about doing right now. So why don't you just try it and do your own thing for a little bit? And 3 years from now, if it doesn't work exactly the way you want to, if you're not making as much money than you want, then you can join a firm at that time. He goes, but you're going to come on at a different level because maybe you can bring 20 clients with you. Maybe you can bring some assets that you're managing. And that's going to already start you at a much different level than if you get a job at a firm right now. So my plan was just to fail upward. I didn't think that this would actually work. I was just like, oh, if I can just do this long enough to have like a handful of my own clients who want to work with me. And then if I was able to join another firm someday, that would be great, right? But what was funny was that the autonomy and like the ability to work from anywhere, to be able to not have a boss, to be able to choose the clients that I work with, was really so freeing to me that when I started getting these 6-figure job offers, even though I was nowhere close to making 6 figures a year into my business, I turned them all down because I just really loved the autonomy and really loved the freedom and knew that it was starting to work, and that if I could just, stick it out for a few more years, that I would really be at this point that I would be living, like creating my ideal lifestyle and a business that supports that.
That's amazing. So that conversation with that mentor is really what kind of got you to take the leap.
Oh yeah. I basically came home and was like, okay, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to wait till I hit my year. I was like really close to, was like 2 months away from hitting a year at that startup. And when I hit a year, I could exercise my stock options. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to stay until then. And I'm going to use the next 2 months to like plot my exit. And that's what I did.
Okay. And what was like the channel that you went out to actually use to get started? So now you knew like you wanted to start this business, you wanted to work with clients online. So what did you do next? Did you like, was social media your thing? Was it a website? Was it blogging?
No, I started talking to people who were already doing it. So at the time, there was just a handful of financial planners that were running firms that I admired or firms that I kind of wanted to be like. So my friend Jude Boudreau in New Orleans was the top Google search for a financial planner in New Orleans. And so he was one of the first financial planners I knew that had a blog and a newsletter and was using SEO. And so I was like, well, that's cool. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, how did you do that? I reached out to this woman, Brittany Castro, who runs Financially Wise Women out of LA. And she was the same age as me, and she was starting to use video, and she had a blog. And so I said, hey, how did you do that? I reached out to this woman, Blair Dequinay, who later merged her firm. And at the time she was like, you need to hire a compliance consultant to help get you set up. So that was the first time that I was realizing like, oh, there's a lot of legal paperwork involved with starting your own registered investment advisor. And this is not the piece that I should do on my own. And so that was really smart of me to hire somebody to help get me set up the right way the first time. Right. And so I learned like the importance of hiring experts when things are outside of your area of expertise.
So important.
Right. And like learning that really early on was super helpful in really the trajectory of my career. And then, it's like be scrappy on the things you can be scrappy on and outsource the big important things, right? Like those are the things that really matter. And then I had a friend who was a travel blogger who said she'd, do my website for me if I could, she could use it in her portfolio. I've since sent a ton of financial planners to her. So, that's grown her business a ton. So she did a website for me. And I started asking my financial blogger friends, what should I do do I need to worry about SEO? And they said, just write about what you want to be known for and write articles with titles that you think people might be typing into Google. And what's really funny is, you've looked at my SEO, and one of my most popular blog posts is, should I contribute to a 401k or a Roth IRA? And because people are literally typing that into Google search. And so that's coming up on the first page of Google. And I wrote that article a long time ago and have since updated it and whatnot. But I really wanted to be helpful. I really wanted to help millennials with their money. You know that I joke that I'm not your father's financial planner. Everyone thinks it's my tagline. It actually isn't. My tagline is financial planning for my generation. But, on Twitter, I say not your father's financial planner, and everybody's kind of really liked that and clung to that. So I think that the biggest thing that I did that was really important was starting to interview other people that were doing similar things to what I wanted to be doing, and really listening to the advice of those people that were just like a year ahead of me, 2 years ahead of me, 6 months ahead of me. It wasn't as helpful to talk to people that were a decade or 2 decades ahead of me, right? Like the situation had changed so much that the people who built their financial planning firms 20 years ago weren't going to be utilizing the same tools as I was going to be utilizing as the people who had started a firm a year before me.
That's some really killer advice.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked a lot about this of like, be really smart about who you're taking advice from, and also it's important to know like which advice to ignore. So if I would have just listened to other financial planners, they kept telling me, why would you want to work with young clients? Young clients don't have any money. You're never going to make any money doing that. And I never would have launched my firm.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, I really like that. That's really good. So fast forward a couple of years, you've got over 100 clients. And you've got a team now, right?
Yeah, I have a small virtual team. So I have Ashley as my right-hand person. She's a CFP like me. She's an associate planner. She preps for all my meetings. She does, helps with my financial plans. She's the resident budgeting expert. And so she does budgeting and cash flow meetings with clients, which is awesome. I have a content manager who's been with me part-time and virtually for 4 years, who's fantastic. She helps with my social media. She used to help with my social media, and we just moved that to another person that does social media for me like 5 hours a week. She's fantastic. So Sarah is still helping me with some newsletters and some blog posts. We co-create a lot of blog posts for the Gen Y Planning blog. And so, so there's like 3 women and me, and we all work part-time and we all work virtually. And we're getting ready to hire a client service associate so we can start taking some things off of Ashley's plate, and that Ashley can eventually start seeing her own clients and bringing on clients under Gen Y Planning, which is super exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how has that transition been for you to go from the solo financial planner that started this company to now the person who's managing kind of a team of people who are helping you deliver this service?
Yeah, it's actually been great. I have learned a lot about hiring over the last few years, and I hire people who are really good at self-managing as well. So I hire rock stars and I let them do their job. And I think that when you're a solo entrepreneur, there's this tendency for people to not want to give up control or outsource anything. They think that they're the best person to do everything. And I never thought that. So I think that's one thing that's been really helpful is I've never been like, I am the best writer, so I should do all the writing. Or, I am the best financial planner, so only I can do that. I really realized that I'm great at the strategy work, And I really like landing new clients and doing the initial strategy and helping them really see the value of financial planning. And then I built a team of people who, for example, Sarah is an amazing writer. She has a journalism degree. She's a great editor. So I can start a post, she can finish it. She can start a post, I can add an intro and a conclusion. And I realize that now she writes in my voice better than I do, is what I joke. And so she's fantastic, and she's helped me improve my writing, and she's been such an asset. And she was able to take that piece off of my plate so that a newsletter always went out every 2 weeks, a blog post always went out every other week, and that it wasn't all dependent on me anymore. If I was like, oh, I just don't feel like writing this. Instead, we could create a content strategy. I could offload that piece so that I could focus on the client work. Once I started focusing on the client work, I realized that while I'm really great at the strategy, I'm not so great at the follow through. And that's what Ashley's great at. She's great at checking in with clients. She's great at following up with them and seeing if they completed their action checklist. She's fantastic at kind of catching the things that I throw at her and getting the ball rolling on them. And then I can just, finish them, or I can start them and pass them on to her. And so I think learning to hire people that have complementary skill sets to you is super important. I've made mistakes on hiring people that are very similar to me. We are both ENFJs, and we have great conversations, and we throw out a bunch of ideas, and then no work gets done, right? So it's really funny when you realize those things. I've also hired people who weren't very coachable, who I would give feedback to, and they wouldn't implement the feedback that I'd given them. They didn't really know how to take the feedback, listen to what I said, and change the way they were doing it going forward. And I just realized that, I really need somebody on my team who's super coachable, who will pick up things quickly. And one of the reasons why Ashley and I work so well together is I'm able to, talk through different things with her. She takes on some projects, I take on other projects, and then we meet back up when we've both done work individually, right? We're both very self-motivated. She's a military spouse. She has young kids. She gets shit done. And I really needed somebody that would be like, okay, I got 2 hours. I'm going to knock this out. And so that's fantastic. She doesn't need a lot of hands-on stuff. And yet, when we first started working together a year ago, she wasn't that interested in working with her own clients. And now that she's sat in on so many of my client meetings and has really seen how I've helped our clients, it's given her the confidence to be like, oh, I know this. Oh, I could do that. But because she had come from traditional financial planning, and it was kind of so different how they worked with clients that were much older that she couldn't really relate to. And now that she's working with our clients that are her age, that she can relate to, that also have young kids or whatnot, she really sees, it's really fun for me to see how she's grown so much and how she's become a really great planner and how she has the confidence now that she didn't have a year ago when we first started working together. So I think that we're a really great team. And I think that one of the things that I would really encourage other entrepreneurs to do is to figure out which tasks you can offboard first. So for me, it was like bookkeeping. I should not be my own bookkeeper. I'm in everybody else's numbers all day. At the end of the day, I don't want to be in mine. And that's a really easy thing to outsource to somebody that is better and more efficient at it than you are. I was able to outsource some of the content management really quickly and social media and things like that. And so I think that really kind of figuring out what is the highest and best use of your time and your skill set, and then how can you slowly outsource these other pieces to experts who are great at what they do and will save you a significant amount of time as well.
Yeah, I think that's so smart because I think it's pretty easy to get caught up in a world. I think, there's a lot of people on the other side who say hire really cheap work and train them how to do everything. But I think, I think it's a lot more valuable to hire really, really A players and let them do their best thing. And that's what you've done. And it's definitely seems to have worked really well for you.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of people hire really cheap work and have it work out really well for them. I've seen that not work out very well for quite a few people that I know. And I've always hired people that have a lot of talent, but maybe just haven't really had the right mentor. And I've helped like kind of mentor them and coach them. And then when they do great work for me, I refer them to other people. And all of a sudden their, content management business is growing, or their website business has grown or whatnot. And so for me, I feel like being able to really train those people and nurture them and encourage them. And it does take some time, but has totally paid off for me. I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes we're like, oh, they should just know how I want this done. And nobody knows how you do your business. And so I think that, when you hire people, making sure you take the time to train them how you want to do their job, and then let them do their job. And then, give them feedback and whatnot, but also like let them take that off your plate. And so I do think that those things are important, and that sometimes I think the mistake is on the entrepreneur, the business owner, not training their team in a way that allows them to step back from that piece of their business.
Definitely. Yeah. I think having hired 2 people in the last year, that's one of the biggest things I've learned is like training takes a lot of time, but that's really valuable time well spent.
Absolutely.
So kind of just keep going. Like what's been some of your, going through this journey of starting your own business and then getting it to the point to where you're now managing a team and you have this successful virtual business. What have been some of your like big aha moments over the years that you've that have come to the conclusion of that maybe you didn't realize when you first got started?
Recurring revenue is your best friend. So the more you can build out recurring income streams, the more sustainable your business will be over the long term. So in the beginning, I had a lot of different income streams, but some of them were like very just like pops of income, right? So I would do a speaking gig, or I would get paid, a flat fee for that. Or I would do, I would just have these like kind of one-time things that it was like, yes, thank goodness that money has come in this month, but that doesn't mean that money is coming in next month, right? And so really building up a business that has recurring revenue from client work has been great. What's interesting to me is so much of the advice in online entrepreneurship is like, build a course, get out of your business. How are you going to be able to scale? You can't scale by doing client work or running a service-based business. And I've actually created a really ideal situation for myself by having a service-based business and not running a bunch of courses and whatnot. I tried the course thing, and for my audience, it just wasn't a great fit. I wasted a lot of my team's resources. I wasted a lot of my own time, and it just didn't make that much money for me as the money that I generate from working with clients. So I would say that just because other people are doing something successfully doesn't mean that it's how your business will have the most success. So don't be afraid to kind of explore other avenues and figure out like, well, what's working for me currently, and what are my current clients wanting more of, and doing more of that. So for example, I realized that I was losing some clients because I wasn't doing like budgeting or cash flow meetings. And so hiring Ashley to be able to take over that piece and offer budgeting and cash flow meetings to our clients has helped with my client retention. And that's helped with the monthly retainers that we have. And we're able to keep more clients that we onboard. Another thing is that I've watched a lot of successful entrepreneurs build out courses and do that great. And that's great for them. It's just not for me. And so that's okay too. And just kind of realizing, like learning to say like, great for them, not for me, has been helpful as well. And I think now that I realize like the power of recurring revenue, I'm actually going to be switching some of my pricing structure next year and reducing our upfront planning fees and increasing our monthly retainers. So that's a shift that we're starting to make as a business. and that, Ashley's going to start taking on some new clients and maybe start kind of being the lead on some of our current client relationships. And I would also say one thing that's been really interesting is by doing client work and really focusing on helping people and offering amazing service to our current clients and really seeing them, reach their goals even faster and save money on their taxes and, pay off the last of their student loan debt and, like buy their dream home and do those types of things. It's really kept me grounded as to what's important and what I care about. And I've seen, and I think you've seen this too, Bryce, like we've seen people, become millionaires in their 30s or, reach a lot of success and get to 40 and kind of wonder like, what is it all for? What's all this money for? And so I think that like really having purpose behind what you're building and not just letting the money be the goal is how you stay grounded as an entrepreneur and as you start to experience success. Because otherwise people can get very destructive in their lives and kind of start to spiral. And that's really sad because a lot of them have built really cool, interesting businesses, but then haven't figured out what they want their lives to look like. So that's something that I think that as I get older is something that I really am more conscious of, that has been an interesting side effect of success that I've been watching kind of from the sidelines.
No, that's super good. And that's some really good insight. You always have really good insight on things, Sophia.
Oh, thanks, Bryce. I love our conversations.
Me too. So kind of getting outside of business, what have been some of the best things that have come from you starting this online business and being able to run it virtually? What is your personal life look like? And, how is that different than kind of the path that you were going down with the traditional brokerage? I know you do a lot of travel and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is I'm no longer living for my 2 weeks of paid vacation. And that was so huge for me was, I really loved to travel. I've loved to travel since I was little. And I just felt like I was living for 2 weeks of paid vacation or 3 weeks of paid vacation. And that just wasn't enough. I think that one of the things that I realized is that I, I think that, I love travel in a way that is just like a deeply rooted piece of me. Like my friends are all spread out, my family's spread out, and the way I want to see the world now is like going to visit friends in those places and having them show me their city, like through their eyes, how they see it, how a local experiences it, or what they've discovered since they've been living there or whatnot. And that's so fun. And that's such a great way to experience a culture and food. And it's been really fun. So I really think that one of the really exciting things has been a lot of my clients are first generation or immigrants or married to somebody who is. So travel isn't just like this luxury thing. It's actually like connecting with the people that are most important to them, right? It's going to see their family halfway around the world. It's flying in their parents to take care of their new baby the first 6 months so they don't have to pay for childcare. It's, it's those types of things. It's having their best friend come to their 40th birthday party, and being able to pay for that. And so it's been really cool to help my clients do that. And what's also been great is they understand why it's so important to me and why I love travel so much. And yeah. And so, this year I did a 4-month program through Remote Year, which was 25 of us that were all able to work remotely. And we did that from South America. So I spent a month in Santiago, Chile, a month in Lima, Peru, a month in Medellin, Colombia, and a month in Mexico City. And I had this small group of us that were traveling together. I got to meet people from all over the world. I got to, I have these friends now from all over that have similar lifestyles to me. And at the same time, like my business grew in that time. And that is so fun to be at the point where like, wow, my business is growing when I travel, and because I'm traveling and getting really specific about what's important in my business and what's not. I didn't do any speaking gigs for the first half of the year, and because I was abroad, and that was actually a really great thing for my business because it forced me to focus on client work and getting new clients, and I did just that. And I actually met with my bookkeeper, and she, halfway through the year, and she was like, well, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is your business is way more profitable this year. Your expenses are pretty much the same, but you've been generating a lot more income. The bad news is you're going to need to make 5-figure tax payments for Q3 and Q4. So these are the challenges when you're reaching a certain amount of success in your business, right? Is that like, okay, then you have taxes to pay, which is a good problem to have. But I was really excited that my business expenses have been roughly the same as they were the prior year, but I've been able to generate a lot more revenue, which is really cool. So I would say travel is super important to me and a huge value of mine. Like, after spending 4 months abroad, I wasn't ready to come back to Austin in August for the hottest weather. So I joked that I did a month of my US friends and family tour because I really wanted to see all my people. And I basically just said to myself, you've built this business so that you can, be wherever you need to and go where you want to. And I really wanted to see my friends and family and have some fun. I think that like adults without hobbies are really boring. And I think that you and I have known a lot of entrepreneurs that have just been so into their business that they don't enjoy their lives at all. And it's really easy to have that happen, especially the first few years, but you have to like lift your head up out of your business sometimes and do something fun and enjoy yourself.
Go outside and play.
Yeah, exactly. So the way I played was I went to New York and did a 5-day musical theater camp for adults, which was amazing and so much fun. And as you know, I was a theater kid my whole life. I was a theater major in college. I did 15 shows while I was in college in 4 years. And that was a big part of my life for the first, 25 years of my life. And so now I don't audition for shows anymore, but I did this 1-week camp and it was so much fun. And you learn from all Broadway actors and choreographers and directors. And so I got to spend a week in New York, and I met up with a bunch of clients there and took them out to dinner, and a lot of clients I hadn't met, and it was so much fun. And some clients that I know really well, that it was so like, that have become friends, that it was just so great to see them again. So I had this wonderful week in New York of play. And I think that it's important for us to like step out of our business. And sometimes just because we can work from anywhere, we do work from everywhere, as you know. And so it was nice to actually take some vacation time in August. So I went to New York for a week. Then I went to Boston. I flew into Boston and rented a car and went to see my godmother and her kids. And my godmother got diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago. And I basically decided I'm going to see her twice a year because she's one of my favorite people. And I don't know how much longer I have with her, and that's important. And so I flew her and her daughter out to Austin in February and got to see them, which was super fun. And so then I went to see them again in August, and just, and spent time in New England. That time of year is just gorgeous. And there are woods and farms and beach, and it was so fun. And then because it was so close to Connecticut, where all of my cousins live, I drove to Connecticut and saw my cousins for 3 or 4 days. So I basically like took 2 weeks off, the first 2 weeks. And then I flew to Long Beach and stayed with a friend and did like 2.5 weeks in Southern California, and got to see my dad in La Jolla for 3 nights, and ended with a wine tour in Temecula with my business bestie, Mary Beth. And so, I just really took time to do the things that I have said for a long time are really important to me. But I actually, carved out time in my schedule to make those things happen. And I'm really glad that I did. And that's one of the things that I'm really proud of is I've really intentionally tried to create a business that supports the life that I want, as opposed to squeezing in my life around a job. And I spent a lot of years doing that to gain experience in financial planning and to, you know, to do the work that I needed to do early on. But I am to the point now where I'm making enough money that I also really have to be thoughtful about how I spend my time. And if, and not just always hustling in my business. That's no longer my priority.
That's one of the, I watch you do that a lot, and I appreciate that so much. And I want to emulate more of that in my own life. I'm like, oh, Sophia does such a great job of like running the business, but not being consumed by the business.
Thank you.
You're just great at that.
Oh, I really appreciate that. And I think that's because I really got burnt out at this startup. And I really was like, I am never going to do that ever again. I'm not going to sacrifice like my health and my family and my relationships and all these other things just for the hustle. And I think that sometimes there's like this thing as in the entrepreneur space of just like 10x everything. Everything has to be 10 times more than what you're doing right now. And what's really fun is when you realize that as a business owner, you are creating your own ecosystem and you get to set the rules and decide what's important and what this business looks like and how this business runs. So for example, I work about 30 hours a week and I take about 6 to 8 weeks of vacation a year. And I've decided that, I've created in my own ecosystem of, Ashley on my team works 20 to 25 hours a week. She doesn't want to work more than that. She has 2 young kids at home, but both of us are super efficient in the time that we're in the business. When we're working, we're like getting things done, right? But when we're not, we're enjoying our lives. And I think it's important to create space and to unplug and to recharge. And I think that one of the things that being abroad taught me was, what are the things that I need to do to recharge? And some of those things are going on long walks, doing yoga, listening to podcasts, reading my Kindle or listening to audiobooks. I read a ton. I don't watch TV. I didn't realize that wasn't normal until recently. But I think that like I really created space for those things because those are the things that allow me to recharge. And, and sometimes it's having an hour-long conversation with one of my best friends in Minneapolis because, I haven't talked to her in a while and I miss her. And so really fostering those relationships that are super important to you, making time to visit your friends and family that you care about, and really doing that now and not waiting to do that because we don't know how much time we have. And we don't know, I really, the more I create a business that supports my life, the more I really want to enjoy my life. Right. And I think that you've seen that as well of me, like, I'll work really hard at the coffee shop for 3 hours. Then I'm like, all right, I'm done, guys. Bye. And you're like, what? I still have 3 hours of work to do. And I'm like, I'm done. I did the things that are most important. I focused on the money-making tasks and I'm out.
Yep.
There's always going to be work to get done. And I think that's the other thing that's hard for some people is to like step away from the work or to not get back to somebody right away on something. Most people are reasonable people and don't expect a response immediately. And if they do, they're not a good client for me,
Yep.
And that's just some things that I've learned as well.
Awesome. Well, hey, we're kind of coming up here on the top of the hour. You want to run through these lightning round questions and give them a shot?
Sure. I'll do my best.
All right. I've got a couple of quick questions for you and then we'll wrap it up.
Cool.
All right. Favorite books or podcasts about growing a business?
Yeah. So one of my like longtime favorites is the Tropical MBA podcast. I remember when I started listening to this, and man, it had to be like almost a decade ago. And Dan and Ian just do a really great job, and they have the podcast has really grown and changed over the years. And it's just a fun one to hear about a bunch of different online businesses and doing different, a variety of different things. And I really learned a lot from listening to other people's stories. So I think that's a good one to check out. In terms of books, I think that Tim Ferriss's book, what was one of the Tribe of Mentors? That book gave me so many amazing suggestions of other books to read. So he interviewed a bunch of people in that and asked them like what their favorite books were and whatnot. And it became my reading list for like 6 months. It was just a bunch of these books that other high level people were recommending and whatnot. That was super influential in shaping what I was reading or the next audiobook I wanted to listen to.
Awesome. All right. And if you could choose a board of advisors with top 3 favorite people alive or dead, who would they be?
So I have, this is so good. Some of my favorite like women who I just think are kind of crushing it are Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. And I've joked that my friend Mary Beth is my Tina Fey and I'm her Amy Poehler. And it's so fun to like grow a business with somebody who like gets your life in this really weird way. And I love that the two of them have been friends for such a long time, and they, started as actors and became, they had their own TV shows and they became these entrepreneurs, and they've both written great books. So I would love to just sit in a room with them and just talk, because it would also be hilarious at all times. And I just feel like you could talk to them about anything. So definitely the two of them. And then I just read Melinda Gates's book called The Moment of Lift that I thought was so fantastic. And she's so smart, and she just has had this amazing career, at Microsoft, and then also in philanthropy. And so I think like that's the next thing that really interests me a lot is, how do you give back in such a great way that really makes an impact on a huge level? So I think those would be the 3 people: Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, and Melinda Gates.
3 good people.
Thanks.
All right. And last one. If you had to start your business all over again tomorrow, what would the first 3 things you would do?
I think that, interviewing people who are doing something similar to what I want to be doing was really helpful for me at the beginning, and I would definitely do that again. I think that really creating packages and that are easy for people to say yes to is super helpful when it comes to sales and pricing and whatnot. And so I think creating a package or 2 packages that people can choose from that makes them say, yes, that's what I want, is super helpful. And I also think that spending some time thinking about, what do I really want my life to look like? And how can I build a business to support my life is a super important question to ask in the beginning, as opposed to starting to create something and realizing I don't like what this is, or I don't like how, it's causing me to need to be in a specific location, and I want to be location independent, or whatever that is. So I think those are the 3 things that I would really think about, and can be really influential in where you take your business.
Definitely. Well, hey, Sophia, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I have a bunch of notes here for golden nuggets that you just gave me. So thanks so much. Final words of wisdom you'd like to leave us with, Sophia?
Yeah, I think to really do what you do well, and then repeat that and kind of stay in your lane is super important, to not get distracted by what everybody else is doing. I think that that's one of the things that's really helped me be successful. And then to really say thank you to the people that have helped you as you grow your team, and to be appreciative of your team that you have. Those are some things that I think have worked really well.
Fantastic. Well, Sophia, thank you for coming on to the pod. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this episode, please, be sure to hit the subscribe button, leave us a review on iTunes, because that's how the internet works. And tune in next time for another episode of good stuff. And hope you have a great day.
Thanks so much, Bryce.
Bye.